Hello, Widowhood. Our guest today is Miss Maribeth Decker. Maribeth Decker is the founder of sacredgrove.com, where people and pets heal and connect. She works with animal guardians who dearly love their animals and yet are facing tough animal issues. She uses her intuitive animal communication, medical institution, and energetic healing skills to address animals' physical, emotional, and behavioral issues. Maribeth's mission is to bring a greater depth of love, compassion, and comfort into the human-animal relationship. Her rich personal life experiences have enabled her to bring wealth of heart-centered wisdom to her work with each client. Her unyielding intention is to consistently bringing forth the maximum benefit for all connected in the most benevolent manner possible. Maribeth lives near Potomac River in Alexandria, Virginia, with her husband, Charlie, dogs Stella and Thibaut, and cats Mac, Bunny, and Shadow. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and those will be in the notes. Let's get into the conversation now.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Maribeth.
Hi.
Welcome to the Widowhood.
Yeah, glad. Well, I never left, so yes, I'm glad to be talking about it.
I know, good point right there. It's always like, welcome to the Widowhood conversation. But so you make a good point. Tell us how you never left. What does that mean?
As we were talking about prior, we just remembered my first husband's 25th anniversary, death anniversary, his passing. And the emotions that came up were just surprising to me. I thought, 25 years, come on. And it's still there, and it's still there. And there are still times where I feel sadness, and I'm not sure what the words are, but incompletions with us. That's where I think that the relationship, however you call it, it lives on in a different way after they've left. But there's still stuff going on. Either it's within you or maybe within them or both of you, it depends. So,
thank you for mentioning that because it's comforting, I'll say, for someone that has lost a spouse 25 years ago and to hear them say it still impacts you now.
It does. Yeah. I look at my kids and they recently said they almost don't remember their dad, which is, they should keep, oh goodness, that's hard to say. They're not being mean. They were 8 and 10, and it was a very tough experience. And so thinking about what they also lost when he passed, and probably you can't make it pretty. You can't make it like, oh, well, it was all for the greater good. Well, maybe it was, but we still lived through it.
It's such a good point. What was your late husband's name, Maribeth?
Winston.
Winston?
Yeah.
How did you and Winston meet?
We met in the Navy. Yeah.
Were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy, yeah.
Oh, thank you for your service. Okay.
Thank us both, right?
Yes, thank you both for your service.
Yeah. So I met him in a school in Memphis, Tennessee, and I wasn't sure, like, who is this smart aleck? And then we got stationed together in Yokosuka, Japan, and that's where the romance started. So, yeah.
Wow. How long did you guys date before you got married?
Probably a couple of years, I think.
Okay.
It's been a while.
I know. It seems like a lifetime ago. I mean, just thinking about being in the military, a previous marriage, it seems, but it's interesting when you're there, it seems bigger than everything. And then as life continues to life on, those things like, wow, I did all of that.
Yeah. So, while we were in Japan, we figured out we wanted to do more and decided we would get married. And I brought him back to Buffalo, New York in January of 1981. Buffalo, the snow city. I'm sure he's like, I must really love her, because what the heck are we doing?
Where was Winston from?
He was actually from, he's an American citizen. His mom was Japanese citizen. His dad was U.S. And he grew up in north of Tokyo, south of Tokyo. But he spent time in the U.S. so he could keep his U.S. citizenship. And then when he was in Southern California, keeping his U.S. citizenship, that's when he joined the Navy. So, yeah.
But California, so that was warm.
Warm, very warm. Yeah.
But Tokyo has cold weather too, so that's
true. But it's more like I'm here in Virginia. It was more like Virginia, where the winters aren't 6 feet of snow.
Oh, the whole state would be set down. I'm in Virginia too. That would just be like, that would not work at all. But we don't have the infrastructure in Virginia to support that level of snow. So it literally would probably be a state of emergency.
Yep, and in Buffalo, it's just, okay, get the tractors out, pushing all the stuff into the stadiums, kids get to school.
I grew up in Chicago, so I can totally relate to that. It was like, well, why are you not going to school? Because it snowed. It was like, yeah, that has nothing to do. I remember one time, like my siblings and I pushing like the screen door open because we had to get out to shovel the snow before we could go someplace. But you first had to get the door open. So I can relate to that. And then I was stationed in Korea for 18 months, which was another immense amount of snow and still having to function like it didn't matter if the snow existed or not.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. So what are some things, so how long did you stay in the Navy?
I was 17 years. I got an early retirement. Just when the drawdown in the military happened after the Berlin Wall went down. And so, he got out earlier than that. When we were in Japan, he went to what was the Officers' Wives Club, and they got a little framed piece for him, and the president of the Wives Club crossed it over and called it the Officers' Spouses Club. So he was like the first male participant in the Officers' Wives Club.
So what rank were you, Maribeth, in the military?
I retired as a lieutenant commander.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for someone that has no clue about the military, can you give a little bit of explanation about what that means to have been a lieutenant commander and being a female at that time?
Well, it's a mid-grade officer. It's literally mid-grade officer. At that time, we were kind of still weird. Females but you're smiling. Like when we went to officer candidate school, they put the women all in foxtrot and echo, and then the guys were other ones. They hadn't integrated us yet. And
so hold on for 1 second. When you say foxtrot, echo, I want to just break that down a little bit for people that don't know. So those are the different companies or the groups that you're in. And so you're saying that they were not integrated. So the women were separated from the men, and those alphabets represent the different schoolhouses or housing location that they were in.
Thank you. Yeah. So we had that, and then it was a time before it was legal for women to go on ships, because that wasn't our role. So it was a different time. We were shore duty sailors, so to speak, for a while there.
So what was your role or job? Or
I had some really cool things. I got to work in the communications station when I was in Puerto Rico and Ponce, and then did human resources, which is different in the Navy than. I think it's different in the Navy than it is the civilian world. We were doing things like in that day, early 1980s, talking about race relations, alcohol abuse, getting people out into the economy in Japan, and how to get along with people from Japan instead of being the stupid American. And then you're smiling and laughing. Okay.
No. I smile because unfortunately, a lot of people don't ever leave outside of the United States.
Yes.
But I do find that people that have a military connection have experienced a broader travel experience. And that gives you some education on trying to understand the local community and how to relate to them instead of expecting everybody to assimilate to what American is. You are in their home country. So the respect is owed to us to learn about them. We live in a melting pot, so you learn what you learn when you're here. But there's so much to be said. My sister is a retired senior chief, and we often talk about when we've traveled abroad, that how respectful and helpful people are when they see you have at least tried to learn their language or try to understand their customs and be respectful than just charging in as a brute and just expecting everybody to assimilate. Those were the things that I was smiling up from my own experience and people I know.
And I'm really thankful because I think from my growing up experience, it was it was pretty, it was a very narrow experience compared after having been a few different places. And
Mhm.
I feel like I was a better human being for that, to understand different cultures, different religions, different words that are used to explain things you never even thought about explaining, you know. So,
I agree. I agree. How many years were you and Winston married?
we were married, I think it was 13 or 14 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mind speaking about how he died or transitioned from this world?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. I can do that. Maybe it was 17 years back. Okay, numbers. It was the morning, a Tuesday morning. Kids were in grade school at that point. And I believe I heard in my head him call me. I don't believe that it actually was a voice. He was downstairs, probably making coffee. Ran downstairs, found him face down between the kitchen and the dining room. And looked like he was having trouble breathing. My son, who was 10, came down. He passed away of a heart attack. And they did try to resuscitate him, but he didn't recover.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, it's hard.
That it's something we learn to talk about, but just as you spoke about when we started, 25 years later, it still impacts you.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. I think the kindest thing I heard that helped me so much was a doctor was there who had done the autopsy, and he says, I'm a doctor that works with hearts. And he says, I could have been right there on the scene and I could not have saved him. Because Patrick's my son, we thought maybe we had done something wrong, that he had choked to death or something like that. Or because we thought he was choking, we didn't do the right thing. And the doctor was kind enough to say, no, that's the way it was going to happen.
Thank you for mentioning that, because so many people struggle with guilt. And to have a physician, cardiologist, if I think I understand you correctly,
Yes.
to say that was Winston's time to leave, and there was nothing you could have done. You couldn't have been downstairs early. You couldn't have been in his space. And it gives you some mental understanding as the emotional part is going on, and eliminates that guilt. So when it tries to creep up, you can instantly hold that up and say, no, that is not the case. This was their time.
Yeah, it was wonderfully comforting for me through all the years. Yeah.
And I can only imagine. You said you had one son. Any other children or?
Yeah, my daughter, Andrea, she's 2 years younger, so she's 8 years old.
Okay. So your children were very young when their dad died.
Yes. Yes. And I say this lovingly, but I remember after he passed, somewhere along the way, I was yelling at him, saying, I did not sign up to be a single parent. You better keep an eye on these kids. You are not done parenting, my man. And I believe he did. In fact, I know he did. He just kept an eye on both of them.
I can relate to that. My children were adults when my husband died, but there was still parenting to be done. There's always parenting forever. And I remember thinking, Mark got out of all of this. Like it started, they're older. Each season of parenting has something different. And I thought about, wow. And I never thought that I was going to be the best parent when they were older. I thought I was planning to lean into my husband because I had done a lot of the heavy lifting, staying home when they were smaller. So, and I've talked to other widows and actually widowers that have talked about that. And thank you for being candid, because part of this conversation, that real talk, some people will never, like, I thought that in my head, but they actually said it out loud. And to let them know you're not alone in that type of thought.
Thanks. I find it funny that we would do that, but that's the real me. So
Yes. Question. Any advice to someone that is a widow raising younger children, or something from your experience you can remember to talk about?
my experience, I am not a perfect parent. I was not a perfect parent. And I was in overwhelm, to tell you the truth. And so looking back, I did not have some great advice other than say, parent from your heart, make the decisions for the kids that your heart tells you is the best. There was a thought process about whether, so maybe change this a little bit.
Okay. Let me ask you a different question.
Yeah, because that one got into talking about my son's difficulties, and I'm not sure that I want it.
Okay, no. So what I would like, and the people are editing, thank you in advance. I would like to ask you that question again, but I would like for you to sort of unpack the overwhelming part and how you manage that. Because I talk to a lot of younger widows and they are extremely overwhelmed, and unpacking that not having to be perfect, because people feel like they have to do everything right. Or would you just like to go to a different way altogether?
No, I'd like to say that, because I think that's what brought me through.
Okay, so I'll start over.
Okay.
So Maribeth, being a parent, a widow of younger children, any suggestions, advice, or thoughts that come to mind?
Yeah, I would say, could you take yourself off the hook right now about being a perfect parent? Because we're all going to mess up, whether there were two parents there or not. That's the truth. And also, use your heart as you make important decisions about your kids. There's so much overwhelm, and, do I let them do this? Do they need some help in this area? How can I best support them? Or just like, I can't do anymore. We're gonna take a break here. And I do believe I came out the other side knowing that I made decisions out of love for what I thought was the best reason for my kids, what I thought was the best based on my heart, not what society was telling me to do, not what, some pressure for them to be this person or that person, but what my heart said that they needed. I don't think I got it right all the time, but I'm okay with it, because it was my heart that led me, rather maybe letting other things make decisions or people make decisions for me.
Thank you. I don't know anybody who's gotten it all right. If you do, please email me and let me know so I can use that pattern. I think we are all learning. It's the hindsight, the choices you can make if you're looking back on what you did. But when you're in that moment and you're going through it, you are trying to make the best choice that you can make. And it is so overwhelming as you're dealing with the fog of the grief and the children that need you right here and now. And I've spoken to many widows with younger children trying to find that space to deal with the grief of their spouse and still try to show up fairly. It is quite the experience to juggle. Have you found community over the years, other widows or widowers that you've connected with, or therapists? How did that work?
I've loved therapy, to tell you the truth. It's been really, really helpful for me. Just unpacking the next big piece and the next big piece. That's been my go-to. I think I'm kind of I'm an introvert, so therapy felt very safe for me. That's the truth, and that's been helpful. And I've continued to use having a mentor or having somebody to talk to and unpack it. I know that's been my godsend, really.
Okay, that is absolutely fair. I'm going to put this in, but I'm not going to go all the way with it. So I know we're talking about your book, Peace in Passing. Has that been therapeutic as you wrote this book also?
Yeah, for the fact that you're talking about animals who are passing, and it helped me. When I write things down, and I love to write, it clarifies everything that I've experienced. And so when I started doing animal communication, I helped somebody or their cat get ready for a transition today. Say what they need to say, find out if the cat's had it. So when you go through all that and do a lot of your own, and then you're writing about other people's and animals' experience, it was helpful. What it solidified for me is love is eternal, and it doesn't stop when the body dies. My favorite quote is, I think I put it at the beginning. I'll see.
Is that the Winnie the Pooh?
No, Winnie the Pooh.
Yes,
Did you put it?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hold on. I thought that was so cute. I read that like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, how lucky I am to have, parentheses, someone who, parentheses, makes saying goodbye so hard, Winnie the Pooh. I was like, oh my gosh, that was really cute. I was like, we are extremely fortunate. When you mentioned therapeutic, I couldn't help but think of the book. I want to ask a few more questions about you. I'm not ready to get into that yet.
Okay.
So what was the transition from this young mother to getting married again? What did that look like for you?
Oh, it was, I did not have happy children about remarrying. And so, although my daughter was she was one of my bridesmaids, it was a very hard transition for them. I'm going to say honestly that I think that having a spouse he was the right guy to help me just stay on my feet and keep doing what I needed to do. And it was it did not make it easy for my kids. And I
can relate to that. I remarried in February of 2022. And it was extremely difficult for my daughter. My daughter lives out west in California. I live here in Virginia. My son lives locally. So when I started dating my husband, my son was part of that experience. He was at the house. He was able to warm up, I should say, to the idea that my mom is dating. I mean, when I said I was going to start dating, my son said, "Mom, you know how demanding or I was like, it'll be okay." So he was actually impressed that it was like, oh, like this gentleman really loves my mom and he's showing up. My daughter did not attend the wedding. And I had to come to terms, and I was feeling my feelings all over some different widow support groups. And people gave me some really good advice. They said, you know what? It's your wedding. It's your day. Her dad, my late husband, we eloped in shorts in Florida. I did a whole wedding dress. It was an entire wedding. And the advice I received was, focus on you. This is your wedding. But there was part of my heart that was so sad knowing how she felt. The wedding was in February. My daughter eventually came to visit in May. And that was the beginning of her accepting it. And now it's a much better situation. And I don't know if it's the daddy girl, and because she was extremely close to her dad, and she's well into her 20s. So the complications for younger children, emotionally, just so many different things, and it's complicated. I will leave it at that it is something to work through, but it's something that's worth the work of doing, I will say, as far as my experience, and probably for yours now. How long have you been married to your current husband?
21 years. So yeah. So it's been a while. And yes, it's interesting you said that my daughter was a daddy's girl, And she had, as they say, she had him wrapped around her little finger. And that was quite a loss.
Yes.
I don't think she disagreed with me if I said that. And so because we're still working on it, we're still working on it.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's still, I think it's just like Winston's 25-year anniversary of his death. That's still something working on. For my daughter and for my son, it has not been an easy thing. I remember for me, Mark passed in March. I think it was a good 6 months before I felt like I was showing up in their life and communicating because I was just so numb. So it's a very complicated process. And I'm glad that you had a therapist and was able to lean into that type of help. So thinking of things that are therapeutic, now I know this is the second edition of your book. How did the first edition, what started that?
Well, I got a challenge to write something, write a book. On animal communication, I thought, what do I know? I know transitions. My journey into animal communication started when my dogs started communicating with me, and the first two that communicated had already passed on. So I'm like, when I worked with a lot of animals, and I thought I'm going to still tell a lot of good stories that'll help people realize that there's a lot of love there. You can help them through the transition. You're going to connect with them probably after they've passed. And so it's not all bad. So that was the first one, was a lot of storytelling about some of the lovely things that happen to people even as they lose their animals, as they pass on.
Now you said your dog, in the beginning you mentioned 4 dogs, Timmy, Eddie, Mitsubishi, and Tybor.
We say a Tibor, I think it's
Tibor, okay.
Yeah. So
were they listed in order that they were your pets, or which was the first?
So Timmy was the first.
Okay.
And then Misty. And then those are the 2 that passed. Excuse me. Timmy and Eddie were the first that passed, that communicated with me. And then I had a real life communication with Mitsubishi that like what, holy cow. And then Tibor, because he had a very rough start. I started seeing some visions from his past life that were kind of disturbing, about him seeing dog training. And then so I picked up other things, and I said, somebody said, that's animal communication. I said, oh, really? Okay. So let me get some training on this. Let me do it on purpose. This is pretty interesting stuff.
So when I was in the book, I'm trying to find, I have all these. So in the introduction, it says, I originally wrote this book because it became clear that for many animal lovers, losing your animal companion can be as hard or harder than losing your family and friends. This is because, in addition to losing a loved one, most of the time, we must decide when and how to let our animals go. It is a terrible burden. After they are gone, we miss them fiercely, because others often don't acknowledge the depths of our grief. We don't feel safe sharing our grief like we do when humans, relatives, or friends die. But we go through the same grieving process as people do when beloved friends and families die. We want to find a way to feel peace about the loss in a way that honors our feelings, our grief, and mutual love with our animal. I thought that was just so beautiful, because you're validating their loss. And when I talk to people that are widows or widowers, or maybe divorced, or they've had an extreme hardship, that pet becomes everything to them. And then when that pet dies and is no longer here, it stirs up another level of a grief that they may have already. So I could, those words were, that's rang true to me as far as how helpful this would be. Somebody may go, I mean, it's a dog, it's a cat, they died, okay. But a whole book for someone to have a safe space to unpack how they feel. I mean, the chapters that you have here, I'm not going to give all the tea away, but we're just going to cover 3. But I just want to read through them real quickly, the chapter titles, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you.
The Right Mind for Peace, Myth about Animals and Animal Transitions, Truth, Finding a Spiritual Approach to Losing Our Animals, The Timing of Their Death is Tricky, Animal Communication Strategies, Mortalities Beyond Regular Medical Care. That's huge. There is such a huge ability to care for your animals. It's not just they get sick and you put them down. There's a way to just way more than it was when I was younger and had a dog and pets and things that are available. Energy healing and medical institution, getting ready for the transition time, helping children through their animal's death. That chapter right there alone is so huge. During the transition, after the transition, visits after death, lingering questions, doing good work after death, reincarnation, spiritual gifts, choosing your next animal companion, honoring our animals who've passed, final thoughts. And I wanted to read those because someone said, well, what's in a book about the death of a pet? These chapters will probably speak to someone and make it even more interesting why this would benefit them. I've only chosen 3 chapters to talk about because I want to leave something for the reader to enjoy from their version too. Do we mind if we get into some of this?
Well, let's do it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The first chapter that I want to talk about, I have a few questions, is myths about animals and animal transition.
Okay.
You cover 9 different subjects in that particular chapter, and you really unpack a lot of information. The 2 that I wanted to, if you would speak about, item number 1, death ends your relationship. And that's on page 7.
Okay. So let me see how I start with that. I'm going to talk about my experience. My experience has been pretty great. I have had experiences where I have seen my doggy who passed, my Timmy, is what I call a full body apparition, as if he was physically there just for a microsecond. And I always told this story because love it. One ear up, one ear down. That's my Timmy. You can't see, but tongue wagging and tongue hanging out, happy. And then he was gone. But so I have an experiential belief, and I know I'm not crazy, so I've got to put that aside. I don't think I would stayed in the military that long if.
No, it would have been found out, especially they're probably trying to get women out quicker than not. So you probably definitely.
You got there right. So it was real. And then I had another one. And then I thought, why not? What I connected with, when I connect with animals who passed, their whole personality is still there. And so the belief that when their body dies, there's nothing else. I call it, you have to use different words, people to make it work for you, but I don't mind calling it a soul or their essence or their personality. It still lives on because I've contacted them. I have gotten validation. So it doesn't end at death. They survive, just like I believe the human species survives as well.
Thank you and I'll leave this to the reader the time, but when you talk about that energy is continual and the science part of that and relating that to that their energy transforms to something else that is not particularly final, but I don't want to give everything away, but yes, I have done some reading in here. The other myth that this I was not aware of or even really thought about, the myth that animals must be taken to the veterinarian to be euthanized.
Well, that's what I grew up with. But I have found that there are a lot of veterinarians that will come to the house. It used to be the only one that got that one is horses, because you know what? You are not taking your horse to the vet. So that was the mission. But for us with the smaller animals, you can have them. You can set up a time where they come to the house. It's big. The ones that I've worked with, it's like a very sacred ceremony. And one of my best memories of this was my dog Mitsubishi. We had the vet, and I think probably was a friend of hers come out. But before we did that, we had like a wake for Mitsubishi while he was still alive. And friends in the neighborhood brought the dogs over to say goodbye, and kids in the neighborhood came over, and we told stories about him, and we fed him all the treats that he loved, even though it wasn't going to get digested or going anywhere. And we had a wonderful farewell for this boy before we actually let him go. And he was home. So my little dog, Stella, was there, and she could be with us, and my kids come over and hang out as much as they wanted to. It was lovely. It was very lovely. So the idea that in most places now, you have a choice to have the vet come to the house and take care of them. You don't have to go to the office.
That is such a different experience. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm sure someone may have never thought of that, and the opportunity to make that transition easier on them, their pet, the family. The idea of the neighborhood dogs coming over to be able to do that, I cannot imagine what disposition that was in better for the dog than having to go to a sterile place. And I mean, I've had dogs. My husband and I have one now. No dog is fan about going to the veterinarian. Most of the time you have to like drag them in there. They know they're getting a shot or something. So wow, that I wanted to bring that out because that was such a unique thing to know about.
Thank you. I want to add something in there too. It's also great for us because one of the hardest things is sitting in the waiting room if you have to, as you're waiting to end your dog or cat or whatever's life, and then coming out and walking through the waiting room again. It's difficult to be in a public place when you've just lost a loved one. I don't know. It's because it's not, and so being at home and then getting to do your own thing afterwards, but I'm going to cry. It just feels so much safer. And nobody's mean or anything. It's just, you know, it feels like a safer space. It is a safer space. It's just so much easier.
It is. Thank you for writing about that. I am going to skip to my next blue tab here, which is on chapter 15, lingering questions. And I have 2 questions from that section. You cover about 6 different items in that particular chapter. The first question that you spoke about, there was a lingering question. Why did they leave?
Yeah. I think that for me, you have to go back to, and I'm not sure, I'm not going to be quoting what's in the book. I'm going to.
Oh, no, I wasn't expecting you to. More the essence.
Oh, good.
No one can remember word for word. That's written, that's done, and then the essence of it.
But if you want peace, you have to look for a spiritual answer. Like there was a purpose for them to be with us. Possibly, if you want to go this far, you guys worked it out beforehand. So many people said my cat chose me, or I just looked in their eyes, or I found them on the same place I found my last dog by the side of the road. I am not kidding. When they leave, it feels to me that there was a completion. No matter how awful the ending was, there is something that they said, I got to go now. My time is up. And sometimes we don't know. We have to trust that. I got lucky. I heard about my dog Mitsubishi. After he passed, I said, why did you go? I wanted more. And he got real stern with me, and this is in my mind. And he says, somebody else needs you. And I had this thing where we had one boy dog and one girl dog. So he said, I need to go because you needed to get somebody. And that's where I found Tibor. And I'm pretty sure he came from a probably dog fighting background, bait dog kind of life, that stuff. And I don't think, given his start, he would have lasted in anybody else's home.
Yeah.
Anybody else has adopted a dog where somehow we just clicked, or a cat. And so there's that reason. I noticed sometimes, and it's hard to say it, but like this, they felt like they were a chapter in your life, and that chapter's over, and then you're starting something else, and they just, not in a bad way. They're like, I'm done. I did what I was here to do.
Right.
We're here to do for me, and I'm moving on now. So those are two thoughts that come to mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. In that same chapter, Lingering Questions, what if they passed when we weren't with them?
There are a lot of possibilities. So there's not like one final answer. Some people feel, and I've been able to validate that with their animals, that it was easier for them to pass when the person wasn't there.
Yeah.
The person felt a little bit of relief, and that's not every case. Some felt like this was the time to go, and I don't have a perfect answer for that, but I do have a sense that whether you knew it or not, if you weren't there, you and they were connected at some spiritual plane, and they felt connected to you, even in their passing. So I want to reassure people that it's not just because you're not there physically. It's not like they haven't and you haven't connected at some level where, I love you. I know I'm going to be, it's not conscious, but I love you. I'm probably going to be devastated when I find it out, but some part of me is here for some part of you. And that's the way I'm going to say it. And I hope people will feel that in their heart.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, all those long, nice conversations you've had with your pet, the things that you felt connected, they were understanding you, you were understanding them. If you were not physically there at that moment, going back to not have guilt about that, because the timing of when they left and what that looked like and your presence physically or not does not derail the relationship.
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you for saying it that way. That was lovely, Tina.
Oh, you're welcome. I have one more chapter, and then I'm going to ask if there's something you want to talk about in the book that I didn't cover, like maybe what is your favorite spot. The next chapter is chapter 19, Choosing Your Next Animal Companion. And you talk about 6 different things in that chapter, which I thought was pretty neat also. My 2 questions are the areas that you cover, not so much questions, to talk about. Give yourself permission to wait until you are ready.
I think this is really important. If there's, there is, the loss for us is so deep. Sometimes without knowing it, if you go too fast, you spend a lot of time comparing the new version of your animal to the one who just died. And that's not safe. That's not kind. It's not mean. It's just people do it. It's like, well, so-and-so was like this. It was my cuddly cat. And this one is just, it'll come over sometimes, but it doesn't sit on me like my other one did. And,
personalities.
Definitely different personalities. And you think you're going to get the same thing. You're going to get a clone, or you didn't even know it until it's not there anymore. So wait a little bit. And also sometimes there's pressure to just, fix it by getting another animal. And you emotionally are not ready. Honor that. Even if it's somebody you're married to. Just say, no, we got to wait. I am not ready to start this again. And wait till you're ready, because then you're bringing the animal into such a different energy than what that was if you got forced into or felt like you made the decision too early.
Very good. Thank you. The other statement that you make in chapter 19, get consensus with other humans in the family.
Yes, they kind of move together.
I know I was trying to look at something, I was like, but no, those kind of resonate with each other. So yeah,
Yeah, they do, absolutely. Because sometimes somebody's like gung ho. I need one now. I can't stand not having. The other one is, oh my, I'm such, or maybe even the kid. Maybe there's kids involved too. Find out who's ready and who's not, and keep talking about it. So, and you have a little bit of. If you're the one who wants to get it right away, and you've got somebody who doesn't, compassion is a good place to be. Because if you make the decision together, again, you start the relationship with this new animal without somebody feeling a little resentful that they've been pushed into it. And so there's a loving energy of we're doing this together, rather than I'm being forced to, or I'm forcing her because I just can't stand it any longer. And
I think that is important because somebody may say, I'm going to surprise them with the dog because our dog died. And the other person is nowhere near ready. They didn't talk about it. They didn't have the conversation. And I think this type of dialogue makes you have a discussion about something you may have put on autopilot. You didn't really have something to prompt you to think about it a little different.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Don't do that. Don't do it to the other person. Don't do it to your relationship, and don't do it to the animal you're bringing in. It's got to be a joint decision. We're all hands on deck, as we would say in the Navy. Decision.
Thank you. What are there any particular areas of the book that you wanted to talk about, and maybe what is different in this edition than the second edition and the first edition?
Okay, so I got a lot more stories, and I love that people volunteered when I asked help, and that they would say yes. I spend a lot more time on the getting ready for the transition, because what I realized is that our grief starts the moment we either see our animal doing a serious decline in, health or behavior, cognitive, or you get some horrible diagnosis. And we always knew the end was in sight, but now yes, it's going to happen. And so there's a lot more on the alternative therapies, things that you can do to help them through it. And staying in the now is really important. Remember, they didn't get the diagnosis. They don't have that emotional baggage around that diagnosis. They're just living with it now. My phrase is, I'm not dead yet. So stop going forward and thinking about it. Be with me now. Do whatever. To maybe a lot of us do. We change, we put the stair treads on the stairs so they can get up the stairs, take them to the acupuncturist, which this is me, so that they can walk, farther and longer without, I know what food is best for them. And we stay with them and they are enjoying this life with them rather than we're sad about it. That's where I would like to be the last reminder, like to finish.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. If you could choose any age, any era to talk to younger Maribeth, what age group would it be and what would you tell her?
I think I'm talking to the 10-year-old, and I would say, I really like who you are. I like who we've become. It's taken me a long time to get there. Don't spend so much time thinking you're not as good as, or you're weird. Just go with it, girl. Have some fun with it. Enjoy it. Hold on to those things that you love about yourself, and find them and hold them dear, and discover them and keep them. I wish it didn't take me so long to rediscover some cool things that were there all along.
So what gives you joy these days, Maribeth?
Working with people and their animals is one of the lovely things that I found, because people's hearts are so open when I'm working with them. I am working on my relationship with my second husband, 21 years, ain't perfect yet, not even close. And what brings me joy is that we're jumping in and finding the laughter and the weird sense of humor. It's coming back up for us. I'm enjoying mining that and making fun of ourselves. And having 2 new dogs join our cats and learning those personalities. So that's it for me right now.
Thank you for this conversation. I will leave it to you to any closing comments or thoughts or suggestions to our listeners.
Well, let me just see if I got anything sitting in the back of my mind. Thank you. Even the hard times are a gift. It just takes a little while sometimes to figure it out, but don't keep looking. It's the story I heard when I was getting sober. Somebody sees this little boy digging through a pile of manure, and he's digging and he's digging and he's digging, and somebody comes by and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "There's so much manure, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere."
Nice.
Okay, so thank you for laughing, but I that's what I do. Let's look for the little pony.
We have to, because sometimes life is crapping on you. You got to just hope that there's more. And that resonates, because I'm just thinking of this humongous pile of poo, and he's covered in it. He's all over it, and that's what life looks like. But you have to just keep plunging or plowing or picking through it, because if not, you stop. And there's so much joy and things to appreciate and memories that if we don't, we'll lose that opportunity to cherish them. But it is hard. It stinks. It's crappy. So I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, Tina.
I am so appreciative for Maribeth to be able to join the widowhood. I am certain that some of you have lost pets, or you may have a pet and be very anxious. They may be not feeling well or thinking of them dying. And I know that this book, Peace in Passing, will be very beneficial to you in that journey. Maribeth is also part of the widowhood community. I'm glad for her speaking candidly about that, and being a young widow and what those different challenges, and being a woman in the military. I hope that this conversation has been helpful for you. I am sorry for the person that you have lost that has died, that has driven you to find us, but I am welcoming you into the widowhood to catch up and check out some other podcasts, some of our social content. Reach out, email me if you'd like to share your journey, or if you'd like to be part of our private Facebook group. We meet up virtually the last Thursday of every month. The third Saturday of the month, we have a book club. I hope to hear from you soon. Have a good day.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.